Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at Haxorus for the Master League Premier Cup. I've chosen to pair it with Walrein and Excadrill for this one. I think Haxorus and Excadrill make for a pretty good core, but I would have probably gone for another steel type instead of Walrein if I had the XL candy for it, although it's not a bad Pokemon. This team does have a few core breakers to it, mainly Primarina, but also Dragon Breath Gyarados can be a bit tough to deal with, although not impossible. The main thing I found with this team was that it was very difficult to come back from a lost lead, but I feel like that's just a general theme of this meta. I did go 8-7 with it in the 2800 elo, so it is pretty decent, although maybe not the best team in the world. Going into the first game, we lead into a Garchomp. If this is running Dragon Tail, we want to get out of here as soon as possible, but because they're running Mudshot, we can stay in, because Haxorus wins this in the 2 shields with a lot of health remaining afterwards. But I'm thinking in the middle of this game, if they're leading Garchomp, it doesn't make any sense for them to have a fighter in the back because they would be too weak to Fairy. And it doesn't make any sense for them to have a Waterfall Gyarados because then they would be too weak to Dragon. So I'm thinking that my 2 ground types in the back might be able to do a lot of work if I can bring them in and get an energy advantage. And they throw their move immediately here. So if this is an outrage and they take me out, I might be able to bring in my Excadrill and just farm them all the way down and come out with a lot of energy. Which is exactly what I do. And what do they bring in? The opponent in absolute shambles as they bring in an Excadrill. So we go up to right before they get to a move, wait a turn to make sure it's not caught, and then go for the drill run. And this will, of course, one-shot the Excadrill, and then they have a Metagross in the back, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into Gyarados. Bit of a tough lead. If it's Waterfall, we want to stay in. Against the Dragon Breath, we want to stay in for 1 second to see that it's Dragon Breath. But we only wanted to get a 1-turn head start against Walrein because Walrein can win the 2 shields here if they only get 1-turn head start. So we don't want to throw a counter before swapping. We would just want to make sure that it is actually Dragon Breath and then swap. They bring in an Excadrill after grabbing the shield and then they go for a drill run. We can lift this with Walrein and then go for an Avalanche. I don't think there's much point in going from the nuke here because the Avalanche just does so much damage to the Excadrill. So we can go up to right before they get to another one and then go for another Avalanche. I wouldn't recommend going down shields to force switch advantage against the Gyarados regularly because Excadrill doesn't really do too well down shields against it. But because we're coming out with an Avalanche after shielding this, I think it's okay, because now we can force a shield or do big damage to the Gyarados that is coming in again, and it should be dry because it threw all of its energy before. So we grab the shield from Gyarados, and then they take us out. And now we can bring an Excadrill against the Gyarados that doesn't have a lot of energy. They're trying to catch a Rock Slide on Ursaluna, so we bring in Haxorus. Of course, this is a pretty good matchup, although it only takes the equivalent of 7 counters for them to get to a potential Ice Punch, and it only takes the equivalent of 10 counters for them to get to what is this, high horsepower that it's running as well. And I think they need the high horsepower here. They do go for it anyways, so it does take me out. But I know that the Gyarados is only on 1 Aqua Tail. I wasn't quite sure of the counts of Ursaluna as I played this game because I haven't faced it in a very long time. But I knew that the Gyarados was only at 1 Aqua Tail, and it takes 5.5 Mudshots for it to get to another one. So as long as I'm only 5 Mudshots away from back-to-back Rock Slide, I should be able to outpace it, which is why I threw the Rock Slide when I did against the Ursaluna. So we get off the first one, do big damage to Gyarados, and then we get off the second one to take out the Gyarados and overcome a Dragon Breath Gyarados lead. Very nice. Next game, lead into Walrein. I definitely misplayed this. You should just go straight for the Breaking Swipe here, because then the Icicle Spear doesn't really do all that much damage. I thought it would do more because Haxorus is so frail. I hadn't really looked at this matchup before going in, so I shielded up the first one and then tried to overfarm, hoping that this would KO and I would come out with a lot of energy, but it doesn't barely take it out, so we have to go for another one. You can just no-shield the first one if they no-shield, because you do win all even shields in this matchup, even if you take the first one. But we can take it out, and then they bring in a Dragon Tail Haxorus. I was not expecting to see this. We do make it to a Breaking Swipe, but fun thing, Excadrill actually does quite well against the Dragon Tail version of this, whereas with counter, this would be a very bad matchup. When it's running Dragon Tail, we can just bring in Excadrill. I would recommend, if you want to run Dragon Tail on Haxorus, to have a move that can hit Excadrill, because now that they're throwing Breaking Swipe, they also have Night Slash. They're just not going to be able to do anything to like Excadrill or like the Steel types in general. So maybe run Earthquake or Surf maybe, I'm not sure. I swap out to clear my debuffs, bring in the Walrein, and apparently I'm just up against an absolute Spice Lord running Charizard in Master League. We go for the Avalanche, they shield it. I'm not quite sure how much an Avalanche would do to a Charizard, but I am sure that a Rock Slide would definitely KO because it's double super effective. So even if this is the Blast Burn, we should be able to make it to a Rock Slide before they make it to a Dragon Claw and a Blast Burn. They even go for a move after only 5 here. So I just let it go because I know that I can live it, and I know that the Haxorus is very low. This was very unnecessary, and it almost comes back to bite me, but we do make it to the Rock Slide to take out the Charizard, and then we can much shut down the Haxorus. Next game, lead into an Excadrill, Dream Lead, but then they swap into a Dragon Breath Gyarados. But there's a very simple way of playing this. You just go for the Breaking Swipe. This will lower their attack, meaning you can take one Aqua Tail on Excadrill, no problem. And it also puts them in a range where one Rock Slide is enough to take them out. So this is a very comfortable way of playing it. Also, it takes 6 for the first 2 Aqua Tails, 6 2-turn moves, and then 5.5 for the third one. So we can go for this Rock Slide here, right before they get to another one. And then just to show off and to leave them energy dry, I am gonna throw the next move on CMP just to showcase how well I know my counts even against the 1-turn move. Yeah, but now because this is a CMP and we grab the last shield, I'm thinking I can just let the Excadrill go and then come in with the Mamoswine, save a shield for Mamoswine, because I'm very much expecting it to be a Dragonite in the back. It almost always is with Excadrill Gyarados. So we can make it to the Avalanche on CMP against this Gyarados. And now they're probably going to bring back in the Excadrill. It would have been a bit dodgy if they had brought in the Gyarados on my Excadrill after I had won the 2-shield scenario against the Gyarados with my Excadrill, which is why I decided to just let it go. Because then they might have been able to make it to a superpower against my Mamoswine, and a superpower plus the Dragon Claws might have been problematic. They try to catch a move on Dragonite, instead I just overfarm, go for the Avalanche on Gyarados or on Dragonite, and then we go for the high horsepower right before the Excadrill gets to another move, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into an Excadrill. I think this is the same team, but we played a little bit differently, or the opponent plays this a little bit differently. I really like the way the opponent plays this. I think that's why I'm showcasing this really from the opponent's perspective. Once again, go for the Breaking Swipe against the Gyarados and bring in Excadrill. And we can take the first move, no problem. They will not be able to farm Excadrill down afterwards, even if they expend 2 shields. So we will be able to win all even shield scenarios here, and then we can farm up 2 right before they get to another move. The exact same way if we played it before. But they just let their Gyarados go. And now they're gonna bring in their Excadrill to just go for the full farm down. I try to CMP tie them because I'm looking at the combat powers of our 2 Excadrills, and mine is significantly higher. I have the best body ribbon, so I'm expecting to win a potential CMP, which is why I went for it. And then we go for another drill run. They expend 2 shields here, but they also come out with a lot of energy. And because my Haxorus took some Dragon Breath damage earlier, I'm not gonna be able to take one of these. Like, it's gonna put me in much down range. So I let the first one go, and now I have to swap in Mamoswine, otherwise I would probably get farmed down, which I really didn't want to happen. Now we can bring in the Mamoswine, shield up the first drill run from Excadrill, and also I'm expecting them to try and go for the CMP, because people always do when they win CMP at this point. And then we can live 1 drill run, so we can comfortably just farm up to 2 Avalanches, go for the first one on Dragonite that comes in, and then also get to another one on Excadrill. But I really like that way of playing it. I know they expended 2 shields on the Excadrill, but it really put a lot of pressure on my Haxorus. If I didn't have a Mamoswine in the back, that might have been a winning play for the opponent. But next game, lead into a Dragonite, very bad lead, we swap into Mamoswine. This is always the safe swap. You can maybe play around with which Pokemon to use as a safe swap. I liked Mamoswine. I was expecting them to try and go for the catch, which is why I didn't want to go for the Avalanche immediately. So I let them get to a superpower, and of course we have to shield it. And then they bring in a Snorlax. I should definitely have gone up to the high horsepower here on the second one, because we can take a Body Slam. It only does about 27%, so I shouldn't have been afraid of them outpacing me to a Body Slam. But also because we land that Avalanche, because they go for the Body Slam here, it actually doesn't take out the Mamoswine. So now we can get to another Avalanche on this Snorlax, either grab Switch Advantage or a shield back from the Snorlax. They decide to let the Snorlax go, which is a little bit problematic because down shields, Excadrill is not the biggest fan of Dragonite, but they did expend all of their energy earlier, so they should be dry, and it is the equivalent of 7 Mud Shops for the first superpower and then 6.5 for the second 2. So we do shield up this first one and then go for a Rock Slide, and we should be able to outpace to the second one and then potentially try and catch the third one. I think that might be a win condition because I'm expecting that to be an Excadrill or like a Magnezone in the back. So keeping my Excadrill alive might be a good thing. Go for the second Rock Slide, we grab the second shield, and then we try and go for the catch on Haxorus. But the opponent tries to catch the Rock Slide on Excadrill at the same time. They get to 1 drill run, but we can lift this. And then, of course, it's 5 for all the drill runs for Excadrill, so we can overfarm by 4 more, get to a Night Slash on this Excadrill on CMP. And because Haxorus is so attack weighted and we come out with another Breaking Swipe, we can actually get to this Breaking Swipe on the Dragonite, also on CMP, and win it once again to take out the Dragonite. Boom. And that is another good game. I do feature some of the games where I managed to turn around bad lead, but now we're gonna feature one where, like, I had a lot of these types of games. Lead into Gyarados, swap into Mamoswine, they swap into Metagross, and we can make it to 2 high horsepowers, which is why I'm going for it instead of baiting before they take us out with a little bit of energy, as you can see. But I don't really want to give them even more farm by shielding this, so I do decide to let it go. And also, if I bring in my Haxorus here, yes, I get off a Night Slash before they take me out, but it doesn't really do anything for me. And they're going to be able to farm me down after throwing the Meteor Mash. They're going to come out with a lot of energy anyways. So I decided to just bring in the Excadrill, hoping I can overfarm a lot here. It's 8777 for the Meteor Mashes, so we can go for this drill run right before they get to another one. Come up with a lot of energy on Excadrill. If it was double steal, I think I would have had a lot of play here. But then it's Snorlax in the back. I try to catch a move on my Haxorus, and yeah. As I say, if it was an Excadrill in the back, I think my Excadrill might have been able, with that energy advantage, to overcome it, but a regular Snorlax is just so thick it can lift 2 drill runs from Excadrill, and yeah. We do get it to this Breaking Swipe against the Gyarados, but it's just not going to put it low enough. We have to expend a Rock Slide on the Gyarados as well, and yeah, we're not going to get to enough energy on the Snorlax afterwards. Final game, lead into a Primarina. Please don't have Charm. If it does run Charm, you can swap in Mamoswine and get to 2 high horsepowers before they charm you down. So I think that is the play. Against the Waterfall, we definitely want to stay in. This is actually not that bad of a matchup. Also, I overfarm a lot because they must be realizing I'm staying in with a Dragon against a Fairy. There's something wrong here. But he's farming up a lot, and Haxorus can have Earthquake. Maybe he has Earthquake, he's just an absolute madman. So I kind of played into that, and we actually did grab a shield on the first one. But now we can go for the Night Slashes. And I'm thinking that maybe this Night Slash is going to put them into a range where I can farm them down afterwards. But then we get the boost. The Night Slash boost has finally come to this channel. For the first time, I think, ever, I get a Night Slash boost. No, that's not true, but, you know, go for the Breaking Swipe on this Gyarados. I'm a little bit afraid it's going to farm me down, which I don't really want to happen. We don't really have a response to this. This is a really rough team to face. So we bring in Mamoswine, and then they go for an Aqua Tail. Mamoswine can take this Aqua Tail, not comfortably, but it takes the equivalent of 6 Powder Snows for the first 2 Aqua Tails, so we can overfarm a lot, up to back-to-back Avalanche. Go for the first one. I think this was on a CMP, so if they shield it, they can get off another one, but then they bring an Excadrill after no shielding. We can go for this Avalanche right before they get to a drill run, hoping that my opponent is not aware of the energy on Mamoswine, because if they overfarm by 1, it's really bad. They do overfarm by 1, really good play by my opponent, and then they go for the CMP, which Excadrill does win. Because they overfarm by 1, they're going to be able to outpace my Excadrill, and 1 drill run with plus the mud shots is going to be enough. I have to go for the catch. Go up to 4, wait a turn, and then we catch on the Haxorus. And somehow, after landing this drill run with Excadrill, or actually the opponent just concedes the match, we overcome a Primarina lead, and that is a good game. That was the last battle for today, and overall I think this team is good, but not amazing. I think Haxorus and Excadrill make for a pretty good core. It is a bit of a problem against Primarina, Dragonite, and Dragon Breath Gyarados, but you can overcome those. I think Mamoswine is not the best Pokemon in the Master League Premier, and if you have the XLs for something else, I would prioritize other things over Mamoswine. If you have limited resources as well, definitely. Other than that, fun fact of the day, Haxorus can beat Dragon Breath Gyarados in the ones with 3 counters advantage. If they go straight crunch, you actually only need the 1 counters advantage. It's not impossible to overcome. It's of course a bad matchup though. Other than that, if you like what you see, I feel like you learned something, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.